Hello, everyone. A very warm welcome to this briefing on maximum containment labs and biorisk management. My name is Dr. Filippa Lentzos. I'm an associate professor and director of the Science and International Security Graduate Program in the Department of War Studies at King's College London. I'm joined by my colleague, Dr. Greg Koblentz, who is associate professor and director of the Biodefense Graduate Program at George Mason University's Schar School of Policy and Government. Today, you will also meet Joseph Rogers, who's a doctoral student in the Biodefense program at George Mason University, as well as an associate director and associate fellow at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. You can find out more about us and the rest of the wonderful team behind the GlobalBiolabs initiative through the link that's been posted in the chat. Greg and I launched the GlobalBiolabs initiative a year and a half ago, in May 2021, with the aim of creating an authoritative source on global BSL-4 labs. Initially, we identified how many labs there were, we mapped them, and we provided basic information about the individual labs, such as when they were established and what size they were. Over the last year and a half, we've significantly expanded our offerings, and this is what we're going to share with you today. This is what we've got planned. So first up, Greg will provide you with an update on the BSL-4 lab data, and he'll also tell you how we've expanded the kinds of labs that we're covering. I will then tell you about a series of national scorecards that we've developed, where we assess how well countries with BSL-4 labs are doing on biorisk management, or broken down as biosafety, biosecurity, and dual use. Another change since we first launched GlobalBiolabs is that Greg and I have partnered with the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists. This gave GlobalBiolabs the benefit of drawing on the Bulletin's deep expertise in communication and engagement to redesign our original map and to add new functionality. And we're super excited to be launching the new map with you today and can't wait to show it off. So after Greg and I have talked through our data, Joseph will be giving you a demonstration of the map and all its features. Greg and I will wrap up with some of our key recommendations before we open up the floor for your questions and comments. Feel free to post questions and comments using the Q&A function as we go through the presentations. We'll pick those up at the end. So with that, I think we're ready to get started. Over to you, Greg.
Thanks, Filippa. First, let's start off with an update to our list of BSL-4 labs around the world. BSL-4 labs have the highest levels of biosafety since they work with lethal and contagious pathogens like Ebola and smallpox virus, for which there are few or no effective treatments. In 2021, we identified 59 labs in operation, under construction, or planned in 23 countries. That number has now increased to 69 BSL-4 labs that are operational, under construction, or planned in 27 countries. Of these 69 labs, most are in Europe, then Asia, and then North America. About 80% are located in urban areas, which heightens concerns about accidents at these facilities. While the number of BSL-4 labs has been growing steadily over the last several decades, the COVID-19 pandemic has led to a building boom for BSL-4 labs. Since the start of the pandemic, 9 countries have announced plans to build 12 new BSL-4 labs. Most of these new labs will be built in Asia, including India, Kazakhstan, the Philippines, and Singapore. India alone has announced plans to build 4 more BSL-4 labs in addition to the 2 they currently have. For 5 of these countries, this will be their first BSL-4 lab. About 2/3 of these labs are government-run public health research institutions. Less than 1/5 are university labs, and less than 1/5 are defense labs. The vast majority of these labs focus their work on human health. New for our relaunch map is a breakdown of the primary containment methods used at each of these labs. The overall favorite is the use of positive pressure suits, where researchers work in self-contained spacesuits with their own air supply. We've also now identified more specialized versions of BSL-4 labs that have specific biosafety requirements. We've identified 14 BSL-4 labs that work with infected animals, which are called ABSL-4 labs, and other 2 labs that have special containment measures to work with infected arthropods like ticks, and these are called ACL-4 labs. This is a good time to note that there's a difference among countries in how they describe the different biosafety levels. So it's difficult to have a one-size-fits-all definition of these facilities. A new addition to our project is a global inventory of BSL-3 enhanced labs, or BSL-3 plus labs, as they're sometimes referred to. BSL-3 enhanced labs have additional biosafety features compared to standard BSL-3 labs. These might include showers, HEPA filters for exhaust air, researchers wearing powered air purifying respirators, and other practices. We've located 55 labs that self-identify as BSL-3 enhanced, with most of these in Europe and North America. We've also expanded our study to include BSL-3 enhanced labs, since these labs are used in some countries to study dangerous pathogens such as highly pathogenic avian influenza and the 1918 influenza virus. And in some cases, they're used to conduct so-called gain-of-function research. Identifying BSL-3 enhanced labs is tricky since there's no agreed upon international definition of what a BSL-3 enhanced lab is. Moreover, there are a few national biosafety guidelines on what constitutes a BSL-3 enhanced lab, and little to no research has been conducted that demonstrates that these enhancements actually provide an adequate level of additional safety for the riskier research conducted in these types of laboratories. Unlike for BSL-4 labs, there's no requirement under the Biological Weapons Convention confidence building measures to declare such labs and their activities. BSL-3 enhanced labs are pretty evenly divided between being part of universities and being government-run public health labs, with about 40% of such labs in each category. In contrast, a higher proportion of BSL-4 labs are part of government-run facilities compared to universities. About half the BSL-3 enhanced labs deal exclusively with threats to human health, compared with nearly all BSL-4 labs being devoted to that mission. A quarter of BSL-3 enhanced labs focus their work on animal health, and another quarter conduct research relevant to both human and animal health. 3/4 of BSL-3 enhanced labs are located in urban areas, which is roughly the same proportion as with BSL-4 labs. Overall, when you add up the number of BSL-4 and BSL-3 enhanced labs together, there are well over 100 biomedical research facilities that conduct high consequence research around the world, with more planned and under construction. Europe is home to about half of these labs, with a third located in North America and another third located in Asia. A small number located in Africa, South America, and Oceania. While COVID-19 has demonstrated that no country is safe from a pandemic, that all countries need a strong public health infrastructure, it's important to ensure that pandemic preparedness activities are carried out safely, securely, and responsibly everywhere. This leads to the next new element of our initiative, which examines the strength of biosafety, biosecurity, and dual-use governance in each of the countries that has or plans to have a BSL-4 lab. And Filippa will provide the details on that.
Thank you, Greg. So we're introducing two new ways to measure the ability of a country to safely, securely, and responsibly operate high-consequence biomedical research facilities. The first assesses the breadth and depth of a country's approach to biorisk management, encompassing, as I said earlier, biosafety, biosecurity, and dual-use research oversight. And this first approach or new way of measuring is based on original research conducted by the GlobalBiolabs team. The second way assesses a country's national context in terms of its general governance and stability beyond biorisk management, and it's based on a collation of pre-existing data and established indices. So I'll talk you through both of these, with the majority of my time spent on the first one. So let's focus first on biorisk management. In a major report that was released earlier this year, the WHO, the World Health Organization, endorsed biorisk management as an overarching concept for ensuring the responsible use of the life sciences. The GlobalBiolabs initiative's biorisk management scorecards are designed to provide concrete, quantifiable indicators of how well countries are implementing this concept. So this concept of biorisk management. So as I said, we've developed 3 scorecards, one on biosafety, one on biosecurity, and one on dual use research. For each of these scorecards, we developed a set of metrics that we use to score each country. The metrics are based on standards and best practices identified by the WHO, the JEE, the NTI, the Global Health Security Agenda, and ISO 35001. So we've collected from all of these institutions we've pulled out what we think are standards and best practices going across that range. We primarily focused on whether or not the metrics were embedded in statutory legislation, regulations, and policies, but we also examined levels of participation in international engagement related to biorisk management. Overall, the biorisk management scorecard grades countries on 41 distinct metrics, 18 of which were for biosafety, and these are the ones you see on this slide. We also had a set of metrics for biosecurity, and there were 18 of those, as you can see here, but these are different metrics to the ones for biosafety. And then for dual use research, we had 5 metrics that again are unique to dual use. We relied as much as possible on official government documents in order to determine a country's score for each of these metrics. The scores for each metric were then added together to yield the total score for each category. So countries could receive a maximum score of 20 for biosafety, 18 for biosecurity, and 10 for dual-use research oversight. We didn't score all countries in the world. We only scored the 27 countries that have or plan to have BSL-4 labs. As you can imagine, this is quite a bit of work to trawl through all the legislation in a country to pull out and find out if they have the right legislation that speaks to the particular metric. And of course, a lot of this was done in different languages. So we've relied also quite heavily on translation and translation software. So once we had scored these 27 countries, we then placed them in rankings of high, medium, and low. Now, before unveiling the national scores and the rankings, I want to emphasize that these scores are based primarily on whether a country has laws, regulations, or policies in place that address the metrics on our list. Our score cannot and should not be interpreted as evaluating how comprehensively or rigorously a country is actually implementing those laws and regulations. So we looked at what was on the books, not how things actually operate in practice. So here we go. The first set of scores. So here are the scores for biosafety. Out of the 27 countries that we scored, 21 out of those countries score high on biosafety governance. 6 countries score medium or low on biosafety governance. Countries that scored high on biosafety had national legislation, they had a national oversight entity, and a national list of dangerous pathogens. We also then, as you can see, had a whole range of biosafety implementation measures, and the biggest gap here was in inventory requirements. So only, as you can see. In terms of biosecurity, and globally, we are doing less well when it comes to biosecurity. Only 12 countries score high, with 9 countries scoring medium and 6 scoring low. So on biosecurity, more countries score medium and low than score high. The biggest gap was in screening DNA orders for sequences related to dangerous pathogens. Only 2 countries actually have policies for screening DNA orders, and those are the United States and France. Only 10 countries include cyber security in their biosecurity requirements, and only 11 countries mandate biosecurity risk assessments. In terms of dual use, the picture is even worse. Only 1 country, Canada, scored high. The others, 2 others, the United States and the United Kingdom, scored medium, and the rest, that's 24 countries, all scored low. Many of these countries received a score of 0, as you can see. Only 1 country has national dual-use research legislation. 2 countries have entities with national oversight responsibility, and 3 countries have funding agency review processes. Only 3 countries have national awareness raising measures. In 11 countries, stakeholders have adopted self-governance measures. So overall, when we add the biosafety, biosecurity, and dual use research oversight together, 7 countries score high on biorisk management, 15 countries score medium, and 5 score low. There are obviously many things that we can read into these scores, and there are obviously also many caveats to how we collected and made these scores, etc. But the one thing that we want to highlight that we think comes through very clearly in the results is that many of the countries that are currently building new maximum containment facilities, some of them for the very first time, are scoring poorly on biorisk management. But, and this is a bit the saving grace, since those labs aren't built yet, there is still time to strengthen national laws and regulations on biosafety, biosecurity, and dual use research to bring them up to international standards. So for those countries, consider this a kind of encouragement to do so as soon as possible. I said I would also speak about the national context indices that we've put together. The National Biorisk Management Scorecards provide a snapshot of the status of national legislation and regulations, but they don't provide evidence of how well these measures are being complied with or enforced. They, as we said, don't talk about implementation. So, and figuring out how things are being implemented is obviously a very large research project that requires a lot of on-the-ground research. So to provide a general sense of the ability of countries with BSL-4 labs to effectively implement their biorisk management policies, we created these 2 indices. One index measures the quality of governance in a country, and the other measures its level of stability. These indexes are based on data generated by the World Bank, by Transparency International, by Freedom House, by the Nuclear Threat Initiative, Fund for Peace, as well as others. We combined the scores countries received from each of these sources to create a composite score indicating how well governed or how stable the country is. Details of our methodology, we're happy to talk you through that, but you can also find them, the details on our website. The governance and stability scores were usually consistent, with only 4 countries yielding a discrepancy greater than 20 points between the 2 indexes. About 2/3 of existing BSL-4 labs are located in countries that are relatively well governed, while only half are in countries that scored 50 or higher on stability. Again, most of the planned BSL-4 labs are to be built in countries that scored 50% or lower on both governance and stability. To us, this raises serious questions about the ability of these countries to effectively implement national biorisk management policies. So with that, we've come to the end of the presentation of data, and I will now turn it over to Joseph, who'll provide a demonstration of our updated website and our brand new map. So over to you, Joseph.
Great, thank you so much. Hi, I'm Joseph Rogers, and I'm going to briefly walk through a few aspects of our new revamped Global Biolabs website. First, I want to walk through how our map works and how to get to our map. And I'll walk through a few lab entries to demonstrate some of the data that we've collected and have available for you. But then I also want to highlight some interactive graphics and a few of our other resources at the end here. So first, when you appear at the globalbiolabs.org website, you'll end up at our homepage right here. And there's 2 different ways to access our map. And I want to note that our new map will be released at the end of this webinar, so you can't like go play around with it while we're presenting, but at the end we'll release the new map with all of the updated data, and I'll highlight how that works right now. So you can access the map by clicking the map at the top of the navbar menu up here, or alternatively you can hit explore the map at this button right here. And when you click that, it'll take you to our new map after this website, which should pop up with an overview of the world here, and it'll be loaded at this satellite base map style. So there's a number of different toggles that you can select on our new and improved map that differ from the previous Global Biolabs map, and I want to walk through some of those. For one thing, lab entries, which appear up here, can be toggled on or off, and I'll highlight some of the labs in a minute. But also you can remove or add all of our toggle features over here. So if you kind of get lost and you don't see the toggle features, then they're probably hidden in this button right here. So you can also select the global view right here to sort of recenter yourself globally. There's a number of different base map styles that you can use to present data. So if for whatever reason the satellite imagery layer is obscuring your vision of something, you can select the light or the dark base map styles to look at these labs a little bit differently. In addition, we also have different types of labs that have been highlighted in this discussion so far. So we have the BSL-4 labs, which you can see the list of all over the world here. We also have the BSL-3 labs. And you can see you can kind of toggle both of these simultaneously, or you can only select one at a time, depending on how you want to view these labs. We also have added animal biosafety level 4 labs, which have these cute little paw icons all around the world. And then there's also arthropod containment level 4 labs, and you'll see there's 2 here. You can, again, have multiple of these selected, but you cannot have multiple of the scorecard layers selected. So in order to best demonstrate the scorecards, which are color-coded, I'm going to hit light, and you'll see that you can have the biorisk management, biosafety, biosecurity, dual use scores, and I'll walk through these a little bit later, but that's kind of how these different tabs on the left-hand side of the map work. So with that brief overview of all of the features of the map, I want to walk through a few specific labs. And we're going to start by looking at a BSL-4 lab in Germany. So we're going to highlight the BSL-4 toggle here. And now there's 2 different ways that we could get to the Bernard Nocht Institute in Germany. One is we could find Germany on the map and try and zoom in. Or alternatively, we can hit zoom to a specific country. And when we go find Germany on this toggle feature here, you'll see that it'll sort of give us a better view of the labs that are available to you in that region. So the Bernard Nocht Institute is right here. So when we click on this entry, you'll see that the lab pops up in this side menu right here. And again, if the lab's not popping up, then it's probably hidden in this toggle feature right here. So the Bernard Nocht Institute has a number of different data entries that pop up on the right-hand side of the map. And I'm going to walk through these different entries that we've collected data on. So you'll see the address of the lab, the institutional affiliation, which is who owns the lab, the status, be it operational, planned, or under construction. Additionally, there's a hyperlink to the website, and where applicable, there's a hyperlink to the publications that these labs have self-published. There's latitude and longitude, the research speciality, which includes whether it's an animal BSL-4, arthropod containment level 4. Additionally, we have the containment type, which is glove box, suit, or both. The research focus being animal or human, the size of the lab space, and the type of lab. And we've divided these into public health, university, defense, or private. And you can see here, this is a public health lab. As Dr. Koblentz noted, about 2/3 of all of our BSL-4 labs are public health labs. So you'll also see whether the lab is situated in a rural or urban context. So that's kind of an overview of what each of these lab entries look like. But quickly, we're going to go through a BSL-3 lab and the other labs that we have here. So when you select the BSL-3 top-down filter from the map here, you'll see the list of all of the labs around the world. So we're going to go look at a BSL-3 enhanced lab in South Korea, and that's going to be the International Vaccine Institute. So we're going to find the Republic of Korea on the drop-down menu, and it's going to zoom in here. And when you select the International Vaccine Institute, you'll see all of the different types of data that we've collected, and I just walked through up here on the right-hand side of the map. Now, I would note that while 2/3 of the BSL-4 labs that we've collected data on are public health run labs, almost half of the identified BSL-3 enhanced labs are university run, and you'll see that this is a university run lab. So there's so that's kind of quickly how the sort of BSL-3 labs look. Now let's look at an animal BSL-4 lab, and we're going to look specifically at the Canadian National Center for Foreign Animal Diseases. And so when you select this lab, you'll see it pops up here with all of the previous data. And notably, it is also a BSL-4 lab, so it also appears in the BSL-4 lab entry. And so you'll see how some of these are going to overlap, and you can have multiple filters on at the same time to reveal these consistencies. Lastly, we'll look at an arthropod containment level 4 lab, and there's only 2 of these. So we're going to look at the Galveston National Lab, which happens to be an arthropod containment lab. You'll see all of this listed over here, but it is also an animal BSL-4 lab, which is listed right here. And when you select the specialty focus, you'll see there's not only a little paw print, but also a tick. And of course, it's also a BSL-4 lab. So that's a overview of all of the different labs that you can highlight with our map. But we also have released a number of different scorecards, and I'd like to walk through some of that. But to best illustrate the color-coded scorecards, we're going to use the dark map style, because that's the way that colors are going to best appear. And then we're going to walk through all of the scorecards very briefly using the example of Japan. So when you select biorisk management, which is our composite score of biosafety, biosecurity, and dual use, and you hover over Japan, you'll see on the left-hand side of the map the scores for all of the biorisk management and national context. But when you select biorisk management, you'll see the color-coded score for that particular field. So you can see here Japan scored 79 on the biorisk management composite score, which consists of the 3 tabs below it. And when you select biosafety, you'll see that it switches to a darker color green, which matches our color-coded map down here at the bottom, because you'll see that it scored a 95, which is really good for biosafety, and biosecurity also a 94. Now, as was highlighted just a few minutes ago, Japan's dual use scores is only 20 out of 100. And I would note that that's very consistent with some of the findings that we found, that many of these dual use legislations around the world, they're just not there in sufficient detail. So you can also see the national context, the governance and stability scores. And you can look at these colors globally when you zoom out, or at a specific country if you zoom in. So that's kind of how our map works, all of the different labs, the scorecards, how they sort of appear on the map. And I would note that if you have any questions with the map, then feel free to reach out to our team, and we're happy to help as issues or questions arise with the map. But I do want to also talk through a few of the additional resources that our Global Biolabs website hosts. So not only do we have this map, but if you go from the home page and you navigate from the top drop-down menu, you'll see the Resources tab. And the Resources tab provides a number of interactive graphics, databases, reports, and videos. So I'm going to talk briefly about an interactive graphic that we built, show some of the videos, and then also talk a little bit, preview one of our publications tab additions. So first, for resources, if you select the interactive, then it'll take you to our Global Biolabs interactive map that explains kind of a brief overview of what is in a BSL-4 lab. And so you can see here we have different little icons, and when you select these icons, there'll be a pop-up menu with a picture and a little bit of text that'll explain what an airlocking door is and what that kind of looks like in these BSL-4 labs. Additionally, you can see communication in a BSL-4 lab inside of a pressurized suit with a little picture of that depicted here. And some of these entries also have videos that will pop up and play. I've already opened this, so it didn't automatically play, but the Robert Koch Institute was kind enough to let us post some of these videos in our interactive graphic right here. And so these kind of give a little bit of flavor to the interactive graphic and paint a better picture of what it's like to operate in these BSL-4 labs. You can also find all of the really good Robert Koch Institute videos under our resources and video tabs, and they're all listed right here. And so you can watch all of these videos, and we also have a few other resources. So I really do encourage you to check out our website and poke around through the different aspects of the website. And finally, I want to highlight that under the publications tab, we have a biorisk management memos that we've put together here that kind of describe some of the organizations that are responsible for biorisk management around the world and provide a little bit of information about these different organizations. And these will be highlighted at the end of the presentation, but I just want to point you to this location on the website before we talk about those. So I hope that this is a useful website. And again, please don't hesitate to reach out to the team if you have any questions, but I'd like to turn it back to Dr. Koblentz and Dr. Lentzos to talk about some of the recommendations that we have from some of our findings after we collated this data.
Thanks a lot, Joseph. That was a great summary of the website. And there's lots of features in there that we hope you all will explore after the presentation today. So we have several recommendations coming out of our study and our work in this area more broadly to address the variety of risks that are posed by working with dangerous pathogens. And these will also be more fully developed in a final report that we'll release in a couple of weeks. So some of our recommendations are focused at the local laboratory level. We think there's an onus on these maximum containment labs to cultivate a culture of safety, security, and responsible research with high-risk pathogens. Of course, this doesn't apply just to maximum containment labs. Labs with lower levels of containment also need to be nurturing a culture of safety, security, and responsibility because the work they do can still be dangerous both to themselves and the surrounding community. And it's important to emphasize that cultivating this kind of culture is not a one-off thing, but it's a continuous process that requires continuous effort and attention from the highest levels of a lab to the lowest level of the workers who are there. A good place to start for both maximum containment and lower containment labs that are working with hazardous pathogens would be to adopt the recently developed international standard for biorisk management known as ISO 35001, since this provides a template for how laboratories can institute a quality management system to ensure that biosafety and biosecurity are receiving a high priority throughout the organization.
Thanks, Greg. I'm going to be picking up on this second bullet here, but before I do so, I just wanted to say that we are conscious we're throwing an awful lot of information at you, and it's hard to absorb a lot of this. If you do have questions or comments, please put them in the chat. We've already received several. Our team is answering a fair few of them already, and we'll come to those shortly once we've finished going through the set of recommendations. There will also be a recording of this webinar available later on, as well as our slides. So don't worry if there's a lot of information to take in, you will be able to revisit it all. So Greg was talking about the need for developing a culture of safety or of safe, secure, and responsible science at the lab level. On a national level, all countries, but particularly countries where high-risk pathogen work is conducted, must have laws, regulations, and institutions in place that maintain oversight of maximum containment labs and that require comprehensive risk assessments of proposed research for safety, security, and dual-use activities with significant potential to be repurposed to cause harm. Now, in adopting, implementing, reviewing, and updating national laws, regulations, and other measures on biosafety, biosecurity, and dual-use research, we encourage states to take into account relevant voluntary standards on biorisk management, including the WHO's Global Guidance Framework for Responsible Use of the Life Sciences, the World Animal Health Organization's guidelines for responsible veterinary research, and the Tianjin biosecurity guidelines for codes of conduct for scientists. We also want to highlight that little guidance, nationally or internationally, currently exists for fieldwork biosafety. Our focus here is, of course, on laboratories and the research that's going on in laboratories, but we think it's important not to forget that work with pathogens also takes place outside of laboratories, and especially during fieldwork. And so we want to highlight this, and we want to urge states to develop guidance for fieldwork biosafety as a matter of priority. Greg.
So in addition to the national laws and regulations, we also encourage countries and the maximum containment labs within those countries to implement and share those best practices with other countries and labs, and participate in peer reviews of biosafety, biosecurity, and dual-use research, oversight policies and practices. Countries with experience in designing and operating maximum containment labs should be willing to share their expertise in building risk-based lab infrastructure that's fit for purpose, is safe and secure, and can be maintained over the long term. Also, as Joseph already mentioned, we have a set of memos about existing biorisk management networks and of countries and labs that are active in this area. And these existing networks play an important role in global governance of biorisks, but their activities are not very well coordinated and not comprehensive. And so we call upon the Global Health Security Agenda, the Global Partnership Against WMD, the International Experts Group of Biosafety and Biosecurity Regulators, the BSL-4 ZNet and EHRNA lab networks, the International Federation of Biosafety Associations, and the WHO to work more closely together with each other and with labs to help them adopt the International Biorisk Management Standard known as ISO 35001, and create a mechanism, an international mechanism that would allow the auditing of implementation of the standard in labs around this world to provide maximum confidence that they are operating safely, securely, and responsibly. Furthermore, countries with maximum containment facilities must provide complete, regular, and transparent reporting under the Biological Weapon Convention's confidence building measures, and also under UN Security Council Resolution 1540. We also recommend that state parties to the Biological Weapons Convention amend Form E of the confidence building measures to specifically include declarations of legislation, regulations, and other measures and oversight of dual-use research. Currently, countries are required to declare biosafety and biosecurity legislation they have on the books, but not any legislation or policies they have that deal with the governance of dual-use research. We also think it would be very helpful for the WHO to develop international guidance on BSL-3 enhanced labs to ensure that the safety measures adopted by these labs are evidence-based and commensurate with the level of risk associated with the research that they conduct.
Staying at the international level, we recommend that structures be put in place to systematically register and oversee maximum containment facilities. There is currently no international body that has a mandate to keep tabs on numbers of maximum containment facilities or has any sort of oversight function of these facilities. So there's no international inspectors that go into maximum containment facilities in different countries. Nationally, there may well be, but not at the international level. We also recommend that internationally recognized guidelines governing both extreme high-risk research and dual-use research be developed, and that an international advisory capacity on extreme high-risk research and dual-use research be established. And that's it. We've come to the end of what we wanted to present to you today. We'll now open to questions and comments, but two quick things before we do so. First, we will be publishing an in-depth report with all our data, trend analysis, and recommendations, as Greg mentioned. It probably won't be in the next couple of weeks, but it will be in the coming weeks. So look out for that, and we will be sure to notify you on all channels when that comes out. And second, I wanted to extend an enormous thanks to the entire Global Biolabs team for pulling together so much of this very detailed data. It has been a long and detailed task, and they've all stepped up admirably. I also wanted to give a special shout out to Eric English at the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists for all his wizardry in building out the functionality of the map. I think the result we've got is absolutely outstanding, and we are, as I said, so excited to be sharing this with you today. But with that, I'd like to thank you so much for your attention. It was great to have you with us today. We will continue with this project and get more information out to you. So stay tuned, enjoy the rest of your day, and let's link up again in the future. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you all.